Well, I can't say I'm surprised based on how I thought this was going to go, which was Sony was going to talk about this new PS5 model very soon, and it was probably going to be the PlayStation blog, not some kind of event or anything like that, and that's what we got today. So let's talk about this new model and what we know so far, which is pretty straightforward stuff. The leak was correct in terms of the design, so again, I felt very safe saying that that's how we were going to see this thing with those initial spy shots and then a very brief video. That is the new model, which it appears to be, that little, there's like a little slit in the covers now. Now, Sony does say immediately that the console storage was slightly increased to 1 terabyte. It won't really be that on board for total storage, but it's going to be more than the 667 that we have so far. But in terms of if it's a slim PS5 or not, which I ranted about before, but Sony does say it's been reduced by a volume of, in volume it's been reduced by 30%, and weight is down by 18 and 24% compared to previous models. So it is certainly smaller, but considering the overall footprint it's going to take up, I'm sure it's still quite sizable. So it's really up to you if you would consider that our standard PS5 or our expected PS5 PlayStation Slim model that we normally get on year 3. So to a degree, that is what we're getting. And as we see from the design, there is 4 separate panels, and Sony does immediately say the top panel is a glossy white plastic, the bottom is a matte finish. Now, buying a digital edition console means you can add a Blu-ray drive later, which is going to be sold separately for $79.99 USD or €119.99 or 99.99 pounds sterling. And they also give you a quick view of what that looks like with a picture, so very straightforward. The bottom panel comes off. That's where you can click in that disk drive, and it very much will be, it'll have that appearance as though it was always a disk console at that point, so it's not going to look weird or out of place or anything like that. It will be available this November in the US at select retailers and PlayStation Direct. It will roll out globally in the following months, and once inventory of the current model is gone, this is the new model going forward. And in a very not so sneaky fashion, the digital edition console got a price increase. It's now $449.99 USD, €449, and 389.99 pounds sterling. The standard disc console is still the same price. Another very not so sneaky change. All the new models will come with a new horizontal stand, which, judging from the photos, it looks like a little tiny kickstand of sorts. But if you do want a vertical stand, then that's now sold separately for $29.99 USD, €29, or 24.99 pounds, and it will work on all models, including the current one. Sony also confirmed new console covers will be available in early 2024 for the new model, so immediately you will have an option to not make this thing white, which as of right now they've only said there's going to be an all matte black version, and the Deep Earth Collection, which is on pre-order right now for the existing model, but that's the only thing that they're saying right now, so not the existing purple, red, light blue, and pink covers that we've had thus far. But that's basically it. That's our new PS5 model. That's exactly how I thought they were going to do this. It seems like maybe they were a little bit behind on the overall timeline here, so perhaps they just had a bit more of the existing model than what we initially were led to believe, or this and that. It's not like they have a problem selling PS5s either, obviously, but yeah, it was going to be a standard PlayStation blog post. Considering how this works with manufacturing, we were going to see it leak prior, even with the whole Tom Henderson reporting, right? But a matter of we were going to get photos of shells or something off the factory line, right? So for the most part, this is what I thought this was going to be. And yeah, design is the same, right? So, well, same from the leak, which now we can say for sure if we can consider this a PS5 Slim or not. This kind of goes back to the rant I did a few weeks ago on Let's Talk PlayStation, which is, calling it slim or not, that is a colloquial term. The on-paper copyright will never be the word slim. They did release a very small 20-second promotional trailer, and they do say new slimmer size in there. Obviously, they will talk about the weight reduction, the reduction in overall volume and things like that. They might use the word slim in that situation, but in terms of the name of the product overall, it's still just simply PlayStation 5, right? So when it comes to fan colloquial terms, it's really on you, I guess, to decide if you would consider this a PlayStation 5 Slim or not. Considering it's still going to be a very large console, right? That's where, I'm sure once you see it in person, you're going to be like, oh man, that thing's still really big. But for the most part, It's really on people to decide for themselves if they would consider this slim or not. Either way, this is still very much our expected 3-year redesign, where they do make a substantial redesign versus what we've seen so far, which are very slight model revisions. And now it'll be a matter of, once we finally have the thing in hand, and there's going to be teardowns, and I'm sure that'll be a whole thing once we know what Sony has done internally with this new model. But for the most part, yeah, it's such a very Sony move for them to kind of announce it in what felt like a very awkward spot, though, right? It's like we still have Spider-Man consoles out there and a few other bundles for the existing model, and they just announced new covers for the existing model, which are clearly not going to work on this thing. So I'm just thinking the whole time, like, are they really going to announce a new model, and then there's all these covers that, obviously are only going to work with between certain ones? And yeah, well, it's a very PlayStation move nowadays. Why not? It's not like people are that dumb, right? But it still seems a little bit misplaced, but for the most part, not a massive deal. But yeah, the price increase, right? So it's like indirect, but not really. I actually do find it quite fascinating that. Well, I mean, first off, we're in a much different marketplace. It's never fun when we have all these price increases happening. So I'm not advocating for it or anything like that, but we're just not going to have console cycles anymore where we see aggressive price down reductions to the point where near the end of the life cycle you've got a PS5 going for $150 or something. It's just never going to happen, right? Switch is still full price. All these years later, PS5 and Series X have gone up in price in most markets now, and now we're seeing the digital edition console, which I always thought that was going to be the price tag for this console day one, a $50 price difference. So it's interesting that now we're finally there. It's a $50 price difference, which also means the all-in cost, if you buy digital first and then a disc drive later, means you're actually spending more overall to eventually have a disc drive console PS5. But I've also mentioned before, it's probably still going to be an 80-20 split. So Sony would ideally like most people to buy the disc drive console immediately, so I'm sure they're still going to mostly manufacture and ship those to retailers. But it is interesting that they're incentivizing people, I guess, to immediately sort of go for that disc drive console right away. Between that and like seeing them print Forbidden West complete edition on 2 discs, it's just actually kind of encouraging, I will say. If there's one little silver lining thing we can pull from this, it's a little bit encouraging that they're still, for the most part, supporting discs in a meaningful way, if we can call it that. But yeah, the price increase is still a bummer. Looking at the existing digital edition console on PlayStation Direct, already sold out. So that's, yeah, people are going to jump on that while they have the time, while they have the opportunity. I suggest that most others should probably do that if you're looking to get a PS5 for as cheap as possible. But I'll always say your long-term cost is not going to do that well on the PlayStation Store, where you're beholden to the publishers for offering sales on those games. Anyway, little tangent there, but yeah, the stand situation is kind of a bummer too. I actually like the look of this one a lot more, but yeah, that's probably a matter of this thing getting shipped to retailers and reducing the overall cost for the weight of the box. And obviously, if people are not going to use it, if they've got some kind of data or telemetry that says most people are keeping their consoles horizontally, then that's just another way to reduce cost and sell the vertical stand for those that want it. So I'm sure like the actual retail box of this console is a lot smaller, which is going to help their bottom line substantially. But I do like the look of it a lot more. It's a bummer that costs money now. You can also see, though, that they've made it a lot easier to understand what's the eject button and the power button. The power button will be on that middle portion where it's the glossy black plastic, and now you've got a very obvious white eject button where right next to the disc drive, which I thought was a pretty noteworthy little change there. But yeah, that is our new PlayStation 5 model. Nothing really mind-blowing here. Again, a lot of this is really what I was expecting, so they didn't really make a big deal out of this. Just announce it on the PlayStation blog, let people know, hey, this is the new thing moving forward, and now that means we can be even more confident about the PlayStation 5 Pro, because again, this was all back from Tom Henderson's reporting. I've said before, he's like the one person that's had incredibly good sources at the company. So, that means we can probably expect, assuming plans are still, full steam ahead. We should be expecting that holiday season next year, and that also means we should not have to wait very long at all for rumors to really ramp up for that thing as PS5 Pro dev kits hit more and more studios throughout the next 6-7 months. But anyway, that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you all in my next video. You take it easy.